What if the truth you've been waiting for your whole life finally arrived, but only after everything had already passed you by? What if the answers you prayed for came knocking when it was already too late to change anything? Today's story is about love, sacrifice, and the painful reality that sometimes the truth doesn't come when we need it, but only when life has already moved on. This is the story of Evelyn Carter, a woman from Charleston, South Carolina, who carried a secret in her heart for nearly her entire life. A secret that was not hers alone, but one that defined her youth, shaped her choices, and haunted her into old age. Evelyn Carter was born in 1942 in a small, white-painted wooden house near the Ashley River. Her father worked in a shipyard, her mother sewed clothes for neighbors, and Evelyn grew up surrounded by the warmth of family and the close bonds of community. She was bright, soft-spoken, and had a kind of quiet beauty that seemed effortless. By the time she turned 16, Evelyn was already known in town as the girl with the gentle smile. She had dreams of leaving Charleston one day to become a teacher, but fate had different plans. At 17, she met James Whitaker. He was tall, charming, and had just returned from serving briefly in the Army. James had an easy confidence that drew people to him, and Evelyn, shy but curious, found herself captivated. It started innocently. James would walk her home from church socials, carry her books, and make her laugh with little jokes. But before long, it blossomed into something deeper. They spent long summer evenings by the river, talking about dreams, life, and the future. Evelyn had never felt so alive. In the late 1950s, dating wasn't the casual thing it would become later. Every action had weight, every word mattered. And for a young woman like Evelyn, falling in love meant risking her reputation, her family's trust, and her future. But she didn't care. She loved James, truly, deeply. She loved him with the kind of devotion that makes a person believe they can withstand anything. They promised each other forever. They whispered about marriage, about moving to Atlanta, about building a life together. But reality has a way of crushing young love. One night in early spring, James showed up at Evelyn's window with tears in his eyes. His family was moving to Chicago for better work opportunities. He didn't want to go, but he had no choice. Evelyn held his hands tightly, promising that distance would never break them. They swore they would write letters, that their love would survive. And for a while, it did. Letters arrived weekly, sometimes daily. They spoke about longing, about plans, about the future they still believed in. But then, one day, the letters stopped. Weeks passed, then months. Evelyn went to the post office every day, waiting, hoping, but nothing came. She wrote to him again and again, 30 letters in all, but none were answered. People told her that maybe James had found someone else, that maybe he had changed his mind. But Evelyn refused to believe it. She was sure something had happened, something beyond his control. Her heart broke quietly, but she never gave up waiting. By the time she turned 20, Evelyn was still living at home, still helping her mother, still keeping James's letters in a box beneath her bed. She had offers from other men in town, but she turned them all away. Her heart was taken, even if the world told her to move on. But life doesn't wait for anyone. Evelyn's father fell ill. Her mother grew tired, and responsibility fell on her shoulders. She eventually took a job at a local school as an assistant. Not as the teacher she had once dreamed of becoming, but it kept the family afloat. At 25, she married Samuel Carter, a kind, steady man who worked as a postal clerk. He wasn't James. He didn't make her heart race, but he offered stability. And after years of waiting, Evelyn's family gently pushed her to settle down. She had 2 children with Samuel, a boy named Michael and a girl named Anna. She was a devoted mother, a loyal wife, and from the outside, her life looked perfectly ordinary. But inside, she never stopped wondering about James. Decades slipped by. Evelyn became a grandmother. She lived through the rise of televisions, the civil rights movement, the space race, and the digital revolution. But through all of it, one thing never changed: the box beneath her bed. Inside it were James's letters, carefully tied with a ribbon. She would open them sometimes at night, after everyone was asleep, and read his words again. She could still hear his voice in them, still feel the warmth of his love. Her husband Samuel was good to her. But he never knew about James. Evelyn never spoke of it to anyone. It was a secret she carried alone, a quiet ache that became part of her soul. It wasn't until Evelyn turned 70 that the truth finally began to unravel. One evening, her granddaughter, Emily, was helping her sort through old papers in the attic. Emily stumbled upon the box, untied the ribbon, and began to read the letters out loud. Evelyn froze. For a moment, the years fell away, and she was 17 again. "Emily," wide-eyed asked, "Grandma, who's James?" Evelyn hesitated. For 70 years, she had guarded the secret. But that night, she finally told the story. She told Emily about her first love, about the letters, about the sudden silence. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks as she spoke. Emily listened intently and then said something Evelyn never expected. "Grandma, think I can find him?" Emily was part of a generation that had the internet, social media, and digital records at her fingertips. While Evelyn had spent decades believing James was lost forever, Emily knew it was possible to search. For weeks, Emily dug through online records, social media sites, and archives. And then she found him. James Whitaker. Born 1940. Lived in Chicago most of his life. Married once, no children. Worked as a machinist, passed away in 2008. Evelyn sat silently as Emily read the information. Her chest tightened. He had been alive all those years. He had been just a few states away. And then Emily found something else. James had kept a diary. After his death, it was donated to a small historical society in Chicago by a distant relative. In it, he had written about Evelyn, about the letters he had sent that were never answered, about his heartbreak when her silence convinced him she had moved on. Evelyn gasped. The truth hit her like a wave. The letters she had written 30 in all had never reached him. His letters to her had never reached her. It turned out that during those years, James's family had moved frequently, and some of their mail was misdelivered or lost entirely. Both of them had kept writing, both of them had kept waiting, but neither letter ever arrived. They had both believed the other had given up. Evelyn sat in her living room, the weight of 70 years pressing down on her. The truth was there, finally, but it had come too late. James had loved her all along. He had never stopped. But he was gone now. Buried in a cemetery, she would never have the chance to visit with him by her side. She cried harder than she had in years. Not just for the lost love, but for the lifetime of what-ifs that could never be answered. The following summer, Emily took Evelyn on a trip to Chicago. They visited the small historical society, where Evelyn held James's diary in her trembling hands. She read his words, words written for no one but himself, and felt her heart both break and heal at once. They then visited his grave. Evelyn placed a single white rose on the headstone and whispered, "I never stopped loving you." For the first time in decades, she felt a sense of peace. The truth had come too late to change the past, but not too late to finally let her heart rest. Evelyn lived until the age of 87. In her final years, she told her story openly to her children and grandchildren. Not as a tale of regret, but as a lesson. She told them, "Don't wait too long to speak your truth. Don't assume tomorrow will give you another chance. If you love someone, tell them. If you have something to say, say it. Life is too short for silence." When Evelyn passed, her family placed the box of James's letters in her casket, tied with the same ribbon she had kept for 70 years. Her story is heartbreaking, yes, but it also carries a timeless truth, that love is powerful, but so is silence, that waiting can sometimes mean losing, and that sometimes the truth arrives not when we need it, but when life has already moved on. So I'll leave you with this question. Is there someone you need to reach out to today? Someone you've been silent with for too long? Because unlike Evelyn, you still have time.